Train the muscles, not the joints.
Today, get some milk. So see, I've already put my cooler in here. Today I'm going to talk about assessing the weak link in your training, and the reason why this is important is because the weak link is always going to be shifting. Now before I go further, I just want to let you guys know where I've been this last week or so. The reason why I haven't uploaded is because we've been dealing with a lot of forest fires here, and also below us. Like, I live in BC, so Washington State's below us in Oregon, and they've had so many forest fires that the smoke was coming up here and pretty much suffocating us. So I couldn't really train, or I didn't really want to. It wasn't really a good idea. I don't have lighting inside the house, and I usually film outside, so filming outside was pretty much, well, let's just say not healthy to do so because the smoke was so toxic. So basically I chose to just take a week off. I didn't train that much either because I didn't want to get too much oxygen going, too much breathing, because there was a lack of oxygen in the house as well as outside and stuff. So that's kind of where I was. So anyway, if you wanted to know what happened to me, that's what was going on. It's not like I quit YouTube or anything. It's just that the external conditions were so bad. So this is the first rain we've had in 3 months. So we had a 3-month drought here, which is really unusual for BC. But yeah, now the rain's coming, so it's purifying the air a bit, so I can film today. So I'm gonna take you along. I'm just going to get some milk, but I wanted to talk about the weak link in your training principle, where a lot of people talk about weak link when it comes down to certain ranges of motion, or a weak link when it comes down to maybe doing heavy weights as opposed to light weights. But I also want to talk to you about how your training priorities may shift over time, and why you see people train a little differently maybe when they're 50 or as opposed to when they're 20, and so forth. So yeah, let's go for a drive. spot on the way to Creekside Dairy where I get my milk and bread and stuff. They got some organic stuff there and everything. So yeah, I thought I'd just stop here for a second here and talk to you a little bit about what I'm talking about. Right, what I'm talking about is that sometimes you're going to notice that your body shows you different weak links. And one glaring weak link that does come up, and one person made a comment just the other day, and they made, you know, a pretty naive comment, but at the same time, the comment does have some bearing. And what this person said is that, hey, maybe, you know, people don't make results or don't get results because they're not recovering. And that's something that you definitely will find as you get older or as you've been training for a longer period of time, that sometimes recovery becomes your weak link. So it's not about, are you pushing hard enough in the gym? It's not about, are you intense enough? Are you doing enough drop sets? If anything, it's about, are you recovering from what you are doing? So it's almost like when you're younger or when you're a teenager or, you know, you're 20 years old or whatever, you seem to recover from everything, or at least you have an easier time recovering. But then there may be other times in your life where your body is almost behind. It can't keep up with the recovery. So you have to change what your main priority of your training is. Now, of course, we're all on this journey to build muscle mass and to lose body fat and to feel good, most importantly. But you will notice that as you get older or as you've been training for a period of time, feeling good starts to take a higher priority than having an ab vein or basically looking like you're ready to step on stage in any 1 minute. Because most of the time, if you don't change your priority, your body starts to break down so badly that you just can't recover. So you'll see a lot of older bodybuilders, that whole alpha mentality, break down the body at any cost, no longer applies because they found that sweet spot in the middle of pushing the body, but at the same time recovering, is building a better quality of life for them rather than put muscle on at any cost. So because I've observed this with myself, I've observed it with other people, I've observed it for a long period of time, I started to just think about why this might be. And maybe it's not because age itself is a problem. It's just that after you've been doing something for a certain period of time, different weak links pop up. Once you've built up a certain amount of muscle, once you've trained and put a lot of mileage on the body, then there are certain times where it's time to change the transmission, right? Or time to change the tires, or time to rebuild something. You know, we do it with cars all the time. It's the mileage, not necessarily the age, that's the problem. So because of this, sometimes you're going to notice that doing a different type of program that may not be as bodybuilderish is going to be more prevalent for you. And one thing I thought about was more of a yin approach to training for periods of time, just like I did in the Body Bliss training program. The reason why that may be necessary for people at certain times, because they've already really pushed themselves so hard for such a long period of time. Now it's time to back off a bit, allow the body to recover the denser tissues, and then go back into the intense training at some other point once this greater recovery has taken place. So one thing I want to urge you alpha guys out there, you know, you A-type personality type people, is that training to feel good is still a relevant thing. If you just do feel good training for a period of time, or a Body Bliss type training program like I have there, that will also build muscle in the long run, because what you're doing is you're focusing on building life force. Now, what's the weakest link at the end of your life? The weakest link at the end of your life is life force, right? So as you get older, you want to also take periods of time where you focus on building life force, which is not about beating the body to death, but about circulating the energy, stretching, moving the muscles, moving the ranges of motion, you know, building in flexibility, but pumping blood around, but not burning it out and ripping the tissue half to death. Because you don't want to burn the body out with recuperation all the time. Once in a while is good, but if you do it all the time, it can be overkill. So don't be surprised if during some stages of your training that you feel the need to now start working with a more blisser type of training. Blisser, right? Let's make up the word. A blisser type of training. So that way you not only enjoy training, but at the same time you're building the necessary life force for that period of time where you feel like you really want to push hard again and then blast through another plateau. So yeah, it's a glorified form of periodization, But what I find is that your periods of intense training may become shorter, and you may need longer periods of time of building vitality and life force before going back into super intense training. So this is something I've observed a lot. Now, another thing you want to look at is, no matter what age you are, is that if you're not recuperating, it's not always the training program that's the problem. Sometimes it's because your body needs more food, or it needs more sleep, or something in your life needs adjusting in order to cater towards your goal. Now, if all those things are taken care of, then look at the training program and say, okay, maybe I just need extra days off. Maybe I need to do a different training program altogether. Maybe my body, for some reason, does not recover the same as somebody else's, right? Maybe you're like a glorified boy in a bubble, you know what I mean? Like with no immune system and no recovery system, and you need to basically just train a couple sets per week for a body part. That might be the thing for you. Who knows, right? But only through being open to whatever stage you're at or whatever your weak link is, can you start to fully address it. And I notice a lot of people don't address their weak link. They look at just what worked for the pro, or what worked for the Instagram model, or what worked for somebody they know, instead of looking at what is their weak link in this moment in time, and start working at the parameters that affect that weak link specifically. Mountain. I gotta go get some milk. And it's still raining out. Put all my milk in there. Yeah, pretty handy, huh? As you can see, I got some ground beef here. Got some milk, a little bit of bread. I don't really have the bread too much. The wife has the bread, but yeah, there you go. And some coffee, of course. You don't have coffee, you know. It's important. But yeah, one thing I want to talk about, one thing I mentioned before, is that sometimes you've got to talk about recovery, whether you're recovering or not. And that becomes a big issue for some people, especially when they get older, because younger, people generally tend to recover better when they're younger, of course. But the first thing people will look at is their protein. Then they increase their protein or their supplementation, and then automatically assume that that's going to make a big difference in their recovery. And sometimes that will. But are you digesting the protein? Is your digestive system working properly? These are things to also look at, because there's a lot of factors that go into whether you're actually using the protein or not. And you can ingest as much protein as you want, but if your body is incapable of digesting it, and you're getting the runs, or you're getting sick from it or whatever, then yeah, you might not be recovering. The same thing goes for mineral deficiencies. You can have all the protein in the world you want, but if you don't have enough blood, like say you're anemic or something, then yeah, you're not going to be recovering either, because you don't have any blood to carry the nutrients where they need to go. So there's a lot of different aspects you want to look at, or at least try to be aware of, if you're not recovering or if things aren't going right. So speaking of that, let's go get some chicken. I'm going to get chicken right now. What's going on there, Abby? Hey, you're on camera now. Look at that. Abby's on camera. Look at this. So here's what I'm eating right now. Just a half chicken and a Caesar salad. So yeah, there's some fat in this. I'm not really watching my diet that much right now. I'm just making sure that I get protein in. But like I said, I this last week I kind of took time off training anyway, and because I couldn't breathe. So can't breathe, it's hard to train. So yeah, no, I'm just eating chicken usually, and if I'm going to have Caesar salad and stuff like that, then I don't have as much carbohydrates usually in my diet. Especially if I'm going to be cutting a little bit, then I probably would be cutting the Caesar out as well. Now, one thing I'm talking about when it comes down to what you should be looking at in your training is that there may be times, or there may be who would benefit more so from a type of training that is more life force focused, which means you're not constantly breaking down the body so much as just lightly stimulating it, but doing this enough that it encourages a flow of life force and also promotes blood flow, as well as a building of life force and vitality. That's really the main point about it. So I think there's a possibility some people may not respond the best to super intense type of training where they're always breaking down the body so much so that they're always feeling like they're lagging behind. All right, well, that was good. So I just finished that, and yeah, that's my chicken. So I'm gonna go home now and do some editing, put this video together. Yeah, this video was really just for the sake of just kind of getting you to think about there's different ways to stimulate the body, and sometimes subtlety may work better for you than super high intensity, because I've talked to a lot of people, and there's always somebody in the comments that might say, hey Jason, you're doing everything wrong, this is what worked for me, and that sort of thing. And although they might not be right for me, they might be right for you. So that's why I want to kind of, bring up these types of conversations, because they can be very valid. And I also think that these techniques are extremely valid once you get older, or once you've been around, or once you've been training for a long period of time, because sometimes the body may need extra recovery to deal with some of the deeper, denser tissues that get broken down over time, like cartilage and stuff. So going through periods of time where you allow the healing of that, I think is probably necessary in order for a greater longevity and quality of life to continue. Mountain. So anyway, I hope this helps you out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. And if you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the Patreon supporters, and take care for now. Mountain. Natural land.